The dead do not always stay buried, and neither do kingdoms. For 20 years, the name Vargath had been nothing more than a memory. Now its banners stood outside the gates of Asterwin, and with them came the men who had been searching for Princess Elena all their lives. But not everyone seeking the lost princess wished to protect her. Some wanted a queen, others wanted a weapon. The castle gates opened at sunrise. A dozen black-armored riders entered the courtyard. At their head rode a tall man with silver streaks in his dark hair. He dismounted and immediately looked at Elena. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he slowly knelt. Princess Elena. The entire courtyard fell silent. Elena stared at him. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else." The man looked up, his eyes filled with emotion. "No, Your Highness, I could never mistake you. Who are you?" He placed his hand over his heart. "I am Commander Rowan Voss, former captain of the Royal Guard of Vargath." Elena's hands trembled. "Royal Guard? You were only 6 years old when our kingdom fell." "I don't remember any of it." Pain crossed Rowan's face. "Then our enemies succeeded." Rowan presented an old wooden box. Inside were small treasures: a child's silver bracelet, a carved wolf toy, a tiny crown. Elena picked up the toy. Suddenly, a memory flashed. A man lifting her onto his shoulders, a woman laughing, a great hall filled with music, then flames, screams. The vision disappeared. Tears filled her eyes. "I know these things." Rowan's expression softened. "They belong to you." Cedric watched silently. For the first time, he realized something terrifying. One day, she might leave with these people. Before anyone could speak further, a guard rushed into the courtyard. "Your Highness, more riders are approaching." Everyone turned. A second army appeared on the distant hill. Unlike Rowan's men, these soldiers wore dark crimson armor. At their front rode a man with cold grey eyes. General Cale Draven, the man responsible for destroying Vargath. He smiled as though greeting old friends. So the rumors were true. His gaze locked onto Elena. "The lost princess lives." Cale's voice echoed across the courtyard. "Hand over Princess Elena." Cedric stepped forward. "She's under my protection." Cale laughed. "You don't understand what she is." "I understand enough." "Do you?" Cale replied. "The blood of Vargath carries power beyond imagination." Rowan drew his sword. "You have no right to speak of Vargath." "Butcher?" Cale ignored him. He looked directly at Elena. "Come with me willingly, princess, and no one gets hurt." Elena took a step backward. She had never seen this man before, yet something inside her feared him. Without warning, an arrow flew from the hill. It struck the castle gate. Chaos erupted. Cale's soldiers charged. The battle had begun. Guards rushed forward. Steel clashed. People screamed. Cedric grabbed Elena's hand. "We have to go. What about everyone else? They'll hold them off." "But, Elena," the fear in his voice silenced her. Together they ran. They escaped through a hidden passage beneath the castle. Hours later, they emerged deep within the northern forest. By sunset, both were exhausted. They found an abandoned hunter's cabin and took shelter inside. Rain began to fall outside. For the first time since the attack, neither of them spoke. A small fire burned in the fireplace. Elena sat quietly. "I ruined everything." Cedric looked up. "You didn't. People are fighting because of me. They're fighting because of him." She shook her head. Maybe he was right. About what? Maybe I really am dangerous. Cedric moved closer. "Look at me." She did. "You've spent your whole life protecting people, even without your memories. How can you be so sure?" "Because I've seen it." She lowered her eyes. "What if one day I become the monster everyone fears?" Cedric gently lifted her chin. Then I'll remind you who you really are." For a moment, the world became very quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Elena looked at him. "You never give up on me, do you?" "No, even when I keep bringing trouble into your life," he smiled. "Especially then." She laughed through her tears. Then she whispered, "I don't want to lose this." "Neither do I." "What are we going to do?" Cedric looked into her eyes. "Honestly?" She nodded. "I have absolutely no idea." She laughed again. Then her expression softened. "You're terrible at being a prince. And you're terrible at being a mysterious stranger." She smiled. Then, without thinking, she leaned forward and kissed him. This time, it was longer. War, kingdoms, secrets. For a few precious seconds, none of it mattered. When they pulled apart, Cedric rested his forehead against hers. "I think I'm in love with you." Elena's breath caught. She smiled. "I think I fell in love with you a long time ago. I just didn't realize it." A branch snapped outside. Both froze. Then the cabin door burst open. Several soldiers stormed inside. Cale stepped through the doorway. He smiled coldly. "How touching!" Cedric immediately drew his sword. "Stay behind me." Cale looked at Elena. "Come peacefully, princess." "No." His smile disappeared. "I wasn't asking." A fierce fight broke out. Cedric fought bravely, but was heavily outnumbered. A soldier struck him from behind. He fell to the floor. "Cedric!" Elena cried. Cale seized her arm. She struggled desperately. "Let me go!" Cale's expression hardened. "It's time you remembered who you are." The soldiers dragged her outside. Through blurred vision, Cedric watched them ride away with Elena. She reached toward him. "Cedric!" He tried to stand, but it was too late. The riders disappeared into the darkness. For the first time in weeks, he was completely alone. And somewhere deep in the forest, a wolf's howl echoed through the night. Cut to black. There comes a moment when fear becomes anger, and anger becomes something far more dangerous. For 20 years, Princess Elena's memories had been buried. Her pain had been hidden. Her past had been stolen. Now, trapped in the hands of the man who destroyed her kingdom, every secret was about to return. And when it did, the world would witness the true power of the last princess of Vargath. Deep in the northern mountains stood an abandoned fortress. It had once belonged to Vargath. Now it served as General Cale Draven's stronghold. Elena sat inside a cold stone chamber, her hands tied. The door opened. Cale entered carrying an old wooden chest. He placed it before her. "You should see this." She glared at him. "I have nothing to say to you." "Not yet." He opened the chest. Inside were several burned objects. A child's dress, a silver hairpin, a family portrait. Elena's breathing slowed. She stared at the portrait. A king, a queen, and a little girl between them. Her. Suddenly, memories flooded back. Her mother's laughter, her father teaching her to ride, celebrations inside Vargath's palace. Then, the night everything changed. Fire consumed the kingdom. Soldiers attacked the castle. People screamed. Her father drew his sword. Her mother knelt before her. "Run, Elena. Never come back," a little girl cried. "I don't want to leave you." Tears filled her mother's eyes. "You must live." Then another face appeared. General Cale Draven, leading the invading army. The memories vanished. Elena looked up in horror. "You," Cale said nothing. "You destroyed my kingdom." He finally nodded. "Yes." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "Why?" Cale remained silent for several seconds. Then he answered, "Because your father refused to surrender the power of Vargath. So you murdered thousands of innocent people. I ended a threat. You destroyed my family." Cale's expression hardened. Your family possessed a power that could conquer kingdoms. My father would never. He already had. The room fell silent. What? Kale sighed. Your father wasn't a monster, Elena, but other kings feared him. He looked directly at her. And now they fear you. Kale took a step closer. Do you know why your memories were hidden? Elena said nothing. Because even your parents feared what would happen if you remembered. No. They knew your abilities would awaken one day. Stop! They knew you would become stronger than any royal before you. Stop! Kale's voice grew colder, and they knew no kingdom would ever let you live. Tears fell down Elena's face. Everything she had lost, everything she had forgotten, all of it crashed down on her at once. Her breathing became uneven, her hands trembled. Then something inside her changed. A sudden gust of wind swept through the chamber. The torches flickered. Elena slowly raised her head. Her eyes glowed bright silver. The ropes around her wrists snapped. Kale took a step back. For the first time, he looked afraid. Elena's voice sounded different, deeper, stronger. You took everything from me. The ground shook. Cracks spread across the stone floor. Soldiers rushed into the room. Then came a deafening roar. Light exploded throughout the chamber. The fortress trembled. And where Elena had stood, there now stood an enormous silver wolf, larger than any horse. Its eyes burned with grief and fury. The beast charged. Stone walls shattered. Soldiers fled in terror. The giant wolf smashed through the gates and escaped into the night. The abandoned fortress began collapsing behind it. Kale watched from the ruins. He looked shocked, but then he smiled. So the legends were true. Meanwhile, Cedric had returned to Astawin. He had gathered Rowan and the remaining guards. They prepared to rescue Elena. Then a messenger arrived. The northern fortress has fallen. Everyone froze. What happened? Cedric asked. The survivors say a giant wolf destroyed it. The room fell silent. Cedric already knew. Where did it go? Toward the capital. Fear spread through the hall. Lord Harrick looked horrified. If that creature reaches the city, Cedric interrupted him, it isn't a creature. Your Highness, it's Elena. News spread quickly. People locked their doors. Families fled the countryside. Soldiers gathered along the city walls. No one had ever seen such fear. Then the watchtower bells rang. The beast had arrived. Far beyond the fields, a gigantic silver wolf stood beneath the setting sun. Its fur shimmered like silver fire. Its eyes looked full of pain. The city trembled. The soldiers raised their weapons. Cedric rode through the open gates alone. Your Highness, the guards shouted. Come back. He ignored them. He stopped only a few yards from the enormous wolf. The beast stared at him. Its growl shook the ground. Everyone held their breath. Cedric slowly stepped off his horse. Then he said the only words that came to his heart. Elena. The wolf's ears twitched. Its fierce eyes widened slightly. For one brief moment, it recognized him. Cut to black. Love is often described as gentle, a quiet feeling, a warm hand in the dark. But sometimes, love is standing in front of something the entire world fears and refusing to walk away. For Prince Cedric, this was that moment. For Princess Elena, it was the moment that would decide who she truly was, a monster or a queen. The enormous silver wolf stood outside the capital. Its breathing was heavy. Its eyes burned with anger and grief. Soldiers lined the walls, their arrows ready. One command would begin a battle. But Cedric stood alone, unarmed. The wolf growled. The ground trembled. Still, he didn't move. Elena, he said softly. The wolf's ears twitched. I know you're still in there. Another growl. I know you're scared. The beast lowered its head slightly. "You're not alone anymore." Inside her own mind, Elena was lost. She stood in darkness. Around her echoed memories, her family, her kingdom, the flames, the screams. Then she heard another voice. "Cedric's, come back." A small light appeared in the darkness. "You're not a monster." The light grew brighter. "Come back to me." A tear rolled down Elena's cheek. She began walking toward the light. Outside the city, the giant wolf slowly stepped forward. The soldiers tightened their grip on their weapons. Cedric remained still. Then the impossible happened. The wolf stopped. Its glowing eyes softened. A single tear fell from its face. "Elena," Cedric whispered. The beast let out a soft, sorrowful sound. Then light surrounded it. The enormous form slowly began to shrink. Moments later, Elena collapsed onto the ground. Cedric ran to her. She looked exhausted and terrified. I hurt people." He gently held her hands. "No," she looked at him. "I destroyed everything." "You didn't." Tears filled her eyes. "What if it happens again?" He smiled softly. "Then we'll face it again." Suddenly, an arrow flew through the air. It struck the ground beside them. Everyone turned. General Cale and his remaining soldiers had arrived. Cale looked furious. "You should have stayed a beast." Cedric stepped in front of Elena. "It's over." "No," Cale replied. "Not until I finish what I started 20 years ago." He drew his sword. The soldiers charged. A battle erupted outside the city. Cedric fought beside Rowan and the royal guards. Meanwhile, Elena stood frozen. She was afraid of losing control again. Then she remembered her mother, her father's smile, and Cedric's words. "You're not alone anymore." She took a deep breath and stood. Her eyes glowed softly. This time, she transformed only partially. Silver markings appeared on her arms. Her strength increased, but she remained herself. She had finally gained control. Cale attacked Cedric from behind. Before the blow landed, Elena stepped between them. She caught his sword. The general stared in disbelief. "Impossible." Elena looked directly into his eyes. "For 20 years, I lived in fear because of you." Cale tried to pull his weapon free. "You destroyed my home." She snapped the blade in half. "You took my family." He stepped backward. "But you won't take my future." The soldiers of Astawin and the surviving warriors of Vargath surrounded him. For the first time in his life, General Cale was defeated. He was arrested and taken away. The war was finally over. Several months later, the kingdom of Astawin had changed. The truth about Vargath's destruction became known. The people no longer feared Elena. Instead, they admired her courage. The surviving citizens of Vargath began rebuilding their homeland. And for the first time in 20 years, hope returned. Inside the royal gardens, flowers bloomed everywhere. Nobles and villagers gathered together. Even Lady Isabella smiled warmly. She had long known that Cedric's heart belonged to someone else. At the end of the garden stood Elena, wearing a beautiful silver gown. Cedric waited for her beneath an arch of white flowers. As she approached, he smiled. "You know, finding an unconscious stranger beside a river wasn't exactly part of my plans." She laughed. "No, not even a little." She reached him. "And now?" He gently took her hand. "Now I can't imagine my life without you." Several years passed. Peace returned to both kingdoms. One evening, Cedric and Elena stood together on the balcony of their castle. The sunset painted the sky gold. Suddenly, a little girl ran into the room. Their daughter. She couldn't have been older than 6. "Mother, father, look!" Before either of them could answer, The little girl transformed into a tiny white wolf pup. Silence. Cedric blinked, then looked at Elena. She tried, and failed, not to laugh. Our daughter just turned into a wolf. I can see that. What do we do? Elena smiled. I suppose we start teaching her. The little wolf pup barked happily. Cedric laughed. Then he wrapped an arm around Elena. Below them, 2 kingdoms lived together in peace, and above them, the stars began to appear. After years of loss, fear, and war, they had finally found